This broadcast sponsored by Pause on Air, the definitive destination for FileMaker professionals. Very cool, very cool, everyone. Welcome to the awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv, where we have a whole bunch of people gathered for Friday. So welcome to FMTrain.tv. So today, let's check out the upcoming broadcast schedule. We got Corn Walker, and so it's Duck Corn or The Corn, which is a really kind of a cool first name because you can have a lot of fun with that. So he's here today to talk about JSON functions, updates, things like that. It's kind of an interesting conversation. It'll be good for questions. If you haven't done a lot with JSON, feel free to ask questions about that. He's obviously a very good teacher. He thinks about newer people, what they need. Let's talk about JSON with Corn. So Corn is a longtime FileMaker developer. He goes way, way back. Very, very experienced. In fact, I can't say enough nice things about him, which is really great. Haven't had a chance to have him on the show before, right? Until yesterday. But I invite people sometimes because they have a great reputation. They're very professional, but putting in front of an audience is totally different. And he's very comfortable with that. So that's awesome. All right. So Corn, you want to show your screen? What are we doing today? I guess we should. So there's two parts to this. So some people here don't know what JSON is or haven't used it very much. I am very familiar with it, but I don't use it enough. But then there's that part of it. And then there's also the changes that were made in FileMaker 21, which is the current release, 21/24.
24? 24, 21.
I call it 21. I call it 21/24 is what I call it.
So wait, we're doing JSON? Because I thought you wanted me to explain the cosine similarity function.
Oh, we can do that too.
Go over that math?
Oh, you're being funny. Okay, no, I'm sorry.
From 2 days ago. 2 days ago. I am remiss. Anybody who was here yesterday, one of my colleagues, Barbara, said, you forgot to mention the blog post. So we have a blog post up on our website about the transactions and the changes there.
How do we get to that blog post? How do we find that blog post?
Just go to Proof+Geist.com and click on blog, and you should see some blog posts there.
They have a blog about what they did, and that's on here, so you could supplement your reading with that.
Look, I got my blog up here. That's not what I want to show, though. Today, I want to go over, I keep going back to the release notes because this is where Claris communicates to us what's changed.
Yep.
And we're talking about the JSON function. So I'm going to go, for people who haven't really worked with JSON a lot, I will go over that. But there's a new function here, which is JSONMakeArray. I'll show you how that works. And then we've got a couple of enhancements to when you're using JSON arrays with the ability to append an element and the ability to reference the final element of a JSON array. So those are the three things that we're going to go over here in terms of the improvements to JSON. I think they're very straightforward, won't take any time at all. So I decided to do this from scratch because, got to make something a little bit challenging for myself. And maybe I will fail at creating that JSON. After Richard has talked me up about my JSON skills, I'm going to just crash and burn.
Yeah, try not to blow it, right? Try not to blow it, right? Yeah.
Hopefully I don't crash and burn. I mean, if somebody's going to crash and burn, I hope it's not that bird behind you.
The helicopter's from Vietnam, 1967. And they painted it. It was green. Yeah. It's supposed to be flyable, but I've never seen anyone fly it. So
let me just kind of backtrack about JSON and what JSON is. JSON is a way to encode and structure your data. It comes from JavaScript. It stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And it's really about how do we actually, when we're passing data around, in JavaScript, you're going to be passing data from one function to another function. We're doing something similar in FileMaker. The way that we use JSON at Proof+Geist is any of our scripts, when we're doing script parameters and script results, we're doing that as JSON. And the reason is that it just handles all of the encoding for us. A long time ago, before we had JSON, JSON was introduced, I believe, in FileMaker 16, which is probably my favorite release of all of the releases.
Yeah, that was a big release. That was a big one.
That was a big release. So when we got that, it was like I had created custom functions up the wazoo to handle parameter encoding and decoding. I had things like I was using the FileMaker quote function. Not a lot of people are familiar with that. The quote function will encode and decode text. But the problem is the decoding is really kind of sketchy because to decode it, you have to use the evaluate function. And I hate the evaluate function. And the biggest reason is because it is a security hole. It is like a gaping security hole because if somebody can put something in there, like maybe some SQL statements or who knows what, you're just executing that. You're just executing whatever they put into that. So with evaluate, it's like, it's useful, but I try to avoid it when possible. So when the JSON stuff came around, I was like, great, I don't have to do any of this anymore. I just have JSON. So I have here a sample little table here. It's got 3 fields here. It's got an email address, first name, last name. And if I want to pass this found set to another script, what I want to do is somehow encode it in JSON. Now, one of the things that we would do is we would perhaps do the first line, for each record in here. Go here. I'm going to create an as JSON field. It's going to be a calculation that represents this record itself. And so I do the JSON set element. Now, this JSON here, what this is indicating, this first parameter, you can set things into an existing JSON object, or you can supply it with an empty JSON object or array. In this case, because we're doing a single record, we're doing this as an object. So the notation for object is using the curly braces. Notation for array is the square braces. So we're going to be creating a JSON object. And then you have these things that are key or index or path. And what this means is when you're setting something, a key would be just something straightforward. So like if I say email, that's going to be my key. And my value is going to be email.
You could think of it like your field. I'm sorry, I had to press the space bar here. That's like your field name, almost like that's what you think about that, like your field name.
Yep, it's like your field name, and then this is your field contents. And then you have to tell it what kind of field this is. So, Claris has helpfully told me that this is a text field. Now, we don't have text. What we have is a set of JSON types. They don't let you type ahead to this, so you have to kind of just memorize them. So this is a JSON string. I'm not going to go into the numeric equivalents for them because that'll make people crazy. So this is a very basic JSON thing. We're going to make this text. I don't know why the default here isn't text. This is one of those things where I'm just like, this should just be text, because I know in the beginning, most calculations were number, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think more calculations I see are text than number. And if you accidentally make a number calculation text, that's fine. If you accidentally make a text calculation number, it's not fine. So I'm going to put that as JSON field up here on my layout as JSON. Just stick this here at the top, just so we can see what's going on here. Make this one 5, pull that down a little bit, make this a little bit bigger. And this will show you that this is essentially calculated this. Now, this is just a header record. I can delete that one and just go with, or I can just click to the next record and see, here we go. The field is email and the contents is laura@example.com. So great. But that's not the entire record. That's just one field from the record. So I have to go back into my managed database here, go to JSONMakeArray, and let's take a look at this some more. So I've got my as.json field. Now it's a little confusing because I have an as.json array that I'm not doing anything with yet. I'm going to show you here. So the way to do multiple fields in JSON is you put them in the square brackets. This is very similar to other places where you can have a series in here, like if you're doing a substitution where you're doing multiple substitutions, you can just do one straightforward, or if you use the braces, you can do multiple substitutions. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to have my email, then I'm going to do another brace, and that's going to be, now the key is usually in quotes here. This is going to be like my first name. I like to typically use the field name as my key name. It just makes life easier when you don't have to do some sort of translation on the fly and say, oh, well, first name is actually name underscore first. So it's like, no.
Yeah.
This, and really, this isn't supposed to be user readable. This is really about, how do we like encode data, typically because you're going to be moving that data around and you don't want the data munged at any point. So now you can see here, I've got my email address and I've got my first name. So fairly straightforward. And I can do the same thing with my last name. So if I go back in here, go to my AsJSON field, and because I'm lazy or efficient, I copy and paste because that's just easier. I don't know.
Margaret, are you watching this? Because you need this too. A lot of you need this. Yeah, yeah.
Now I've got all three of my fields in here. Now I can see. Now this, you can see how it's kind of all run together. There are functions in here. So Claris has given us some JSON functions. One of them is JSON, is the ability to format the JSON, right? So we got JSON format elements. And then it takes as its parameter some JSON, which we're just kind of wrapping this here. So that's our JSON that we created. And this is our JSON format elements around it. And now what that does is that kind of prettifies it, makes it a little bit easier for you to read. It's inefficient, but this is really, so a lot of times when I'm doing JSON format elements, I'm just doing that in my data viewer so that I can see things, but I don't necessarily format elements in, just in the use of JSON.
Backup. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
So it says human, it probably should have said JSON human readable or something, but it's
something like that. Yeah,
format
exactly.
elements. So he's saying that because there's extra spaces and return characters and tabs and whatever else is in there to make it look pretty, that if you had it on one record, it's fine. If you have it on 50 records, it's fine. If you have it on 100 records, it's fine. At some points, at 1,000 or 5,000 or 10, 100,000 records, those extra characters take up space, right?
They take up space. And as you start working with JSON more, it's not the default to have it formatted. So you have to keep reformatting it and reformatting it and and it's like, why are you doing that? Like there's no need to, other than if you're trying to expect it, if you're trying to do some debugging. And again, if I'm debugging, I've got my debugger open, I've got my data viewer open, and I format my elements there. That way it's just doing it at the time that I need it to be formatted. Now, the other thing here, so let's say I want to change this record here. I didn't make these clickable. I don't know what that's about. Enter in browse mode. That's like a rookie thing here. So if I, change her name to Laura K. Laura K, great. That's fine. Everything looks good. Let's say I put a carriage return in there.
Uh-oh.
This is what I'm talking about with JSON. It automatically fixes stuff like this. So it's going to say, yeah, carriage returns, that's no good here. We're going to substitute that out. So that's the big reason that I like JSON for everything. When I'm passing script parameters and things like that, I'm doing it this way.
It's mostly, so let me translate this for everyone. So that's another way of thinking about this is error suppression. He's looking to see where common errors come up. Not that he did it, it's user data, right? How do you correct that? And by using JSON, it's basically making a whole class of possible problems go away automatically. Margaret, does that make sense? A reason to use it?
So it's removing like dumb spaces and other random things that get hidden because you.
Yeah, there's weird kinds of spaces. There's weird kinds of returns. There's all sorts of little things that go on. So yeah.
So I've got Laura K in here, Laura K Gray. Now, going back to defining this JSON, there were three things there. So we used what's called the JSON. Remember when we had this JSON set element, it says key or index or path. So for here, we've been using the key. There's also the index. Now, index specifically refers to when we're doing an array. So you're not going to have an index into a JSON object, which is what these curly braces. You're going to have an index into an array.
To be clear, and I'm asking this question. A word index here has nothing to do with the word indexed as meaning in FileMaker as a relationship tool or.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Same word, different.
I'm going to show you what that index looks like as we get into, the whole purpose of this is like JSONMakeArray. How has that changed? And what have been the improvements? Because all of the improvements here have been to the array format of JSON. Now, one of the other things is in terms of path. So one of the things we do with our when I'm creating my JSON, sometimes I want to include this metadata. So I've got like creation timestamp and account and all that stuff. Sometimes I want to pass all of that. but I want to put that into a sub element. So I do like a path here. And what I'll do is I'll do like, this is going to be metadata dot, creation timestamp.
That name, everyone, is arbitrary, but he picked it for a reason.
It is arbitrary.
But it is arbitrary. It could be Doggy Blue 55. It doesn't matter.
It could be, if you wanted it to be. Now, JSON doesn't have a lot of data types. There's a Boolean, which is true or false. There's number, which could be integer numbers. It can be floating points, positive, negative, etc. There's string is another data type, which is any character strings. And then you have JSON object and JSON array. So those are the different data types that you can specify here. There's another thing that's called JSON raw, which isn't actually a data type. You might run into that, but that's basically when you don't really know what the JSON is, just kind of send it as raw. If you don't know if this is a string or an object or an array, you kind of send it as raw and hope that Claris gets it right, which most of the time it does. Sometimes it's like,
Okay.
So here we go. So now, and just make this clear here, because I've got that wrapped with my format elements. So now I've got my JSON set element. I'm going to put these on different lines. I'm going to make it human readable, just like the JSON format elements does. So each of these lines, we're going to see how we're setting each of these things up here. Okay, so I'm setting this. This is called an empty object because there's nothing in here. I'm setting this email. I'm setting my first name, my last name, my metadata, creation timestamp. Okay, and so this thing is called a path because it has this period in here.
Okay.
So that's what.
So back up the period. Okay, this is what I wanted to say.
Yep.
The period is not arbitrary then. I mean,
Correct.
It would have to be blue doggy dot 55 or blue dot doggy or something. But the dot.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
So if I just kind of, create a bunch of these, and I say this one instead of creation timestamp, this is creation, what do I have, account? And maybe I want to include the internal record ID, which is actually used in a number of places when you're working with things like the execute data API or some other web technology.
DAPI or any of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna use that internal record ID. It's going to prove helpful, so I'm just going to include that as part of my metadata here.
Hey, Jesse, those are Stu. Hey, Stu, it's been a while. Any of you showing up here to live stream, if you have questions, post them, or if you have thoughts about this, or let us know if you like corn, or if you hate corn, you'd rather have peas and cucumbers or something.
So now we're going to see what this does. So you can see here that what's happened with that dot when I set my metadata, that's created a whole nother object inside of here. So my metadata dot creation account is admin. My metadata dot creation timestamp is here. My record ID, metadata dot record ID, is sitting in here. So that's what's happening when we're using that path specifier, is we're actually saying we're embedding, at multiple levels. And you can just keep going all the way down. You can go hundreds of levels down if you have some sort of sadistic streak. Otherwise,
Okay.
Okay. I've seen all kinds of crazy JSON out there. Once you start working with this, you start working with web services, which typically, they used to all use XML to communicate. Now a lot of them have switched over to JSON. I've seen some crazy JSON structures that are wicked deep. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, why did they do it this way? And there's no rhyme or reason. It seemed like somebody just had a bad day or was angry at the world, or I don't know what it was.
Margaret, Margaret, let me ask you, because you're a really good benchmark. Margaret, I think probably last time you were at Engage, she was like, or years ago, she went there 15, 14. She helped, but she is learning a lot about this, and she's kind of at that power junior to sliding into the intermediate role a little bit. So she's yet to really use JSON. So Margaret, question. Okay. Ask me a question. Ask Corn a question, not me. But
the question I have is kind of a little off topic, I feel like, but I don't totally understand the difference between a JSON object and a JSON array.
Oh, okay. That's where we're going to go next.
Oh, cool.
so right now, what we've been seeing is a JSON object. And a JSON object, what it has is it has what's called a key, and it has a value. So email equals Laura@example.com. First name equals Laura K. Last name equals Gray. So that's basically what a JSON object is it's going to be a one or more key value pairs. Now, it can get kind of crazy because you can start embedding objects inside of arrays, inside of objects, inside of arrays. Like, as I said, you can make a really crazy JSON schema here where nobody can actually follow what's going on. But this is what we have here. We've done an object as JSON object. Now, with an array is usually a group of things. So it's not any one thing. This as JSON I created here, this is a single record that's stored as JSON.
Oh, okay.
An array might be my found set of records.
Yeah. So Margaret, he's kind of dancing around this, and I want to pin him down on this. So an object, I always hate the word object. Is that, what's an object? It's a record, I think, in our situation, but it could be something else. But then an array is multiple objects, Margaret, glued together, is my understanding. I think that makes sense, right? Of course, they didn't use the word
like
record and
single record and the array is a found set of records. Yeah.
Well, found set is kind of a FileMaker term. I don't know.
It is.
Corn, have you been to other data systems? Does anyone else use the word record is commonly used? Is found set used anywhere else?
I don't know of anywhere else where found set is used.
The word found set.
Yeah, they typically refer to it as either a record set or as a projection or as there's a lot of different things. You can set
the resulting record set of a search or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're usually, it's like if I do a SQL call, it's going to return a set of data to me.
Correct.
But it's not called a found set because found set is a uniquely FileMaker thing. And it's because we have this tight binding between the data and the interface to display that data.
Yeah.
And so,
which is generally a good thing for newer people, which is great.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's part of what makes FileMaker so amazing is that, it has that because when you start getting in outside of FileMaker and into more traditional development, you see there's a whole lot of stuff we get for free with FileMaker. A whole lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So found set is one of those. So here I'm just going to show you what an array might look like. And remember, I said an array is probably going to be a group of records. And this is just a global field here. We're going to actually use a script to populate this. But if I had an array of first names here, I might have Laura K. And you'll notice, I don't know if you've noticed, I didn't point this out, but the delimiter here for JSON is a comma. So you might ask, what happens if I put a comma in here? Well, it's fine because it's actually quoted.
Oh,
it's inside the quotes.
Gotcha.
So an array is going to look something like this, where I've got multiple records represented here. But you'll notice I don't have any labels, right? These are just values. So this is going to be a JSON array.
I'll back up for a second. So as JSON, so at the top as JSON, that's a calculation, right? But the thing you're doing below is just a text field. Okay, got it.
Yep, this is just text field. I just made a text field here. I just want to show you what an array looks like. It looks kind of similar to an object. It has the square braces, though, instead of the curly ones. And what it has is just a single value, no label.
Okay.
And then you're going to have multiple of them typically.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple of things to know about JSON arrays. So remember when we were talking about that JSON set element statement, we said key, array, or path.
Correct.
We showed you key here, which is like email. We showed you path, which is metadata dot creation account.
Something does something. Okay.
Yep. In terms of the index, this is where it's just going to be a number. And JSON is indexed at 0. There's a few functions that are indexed at 0. I don't know if anybody knows off the top of their head.
Choose is one. Choose
is one.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was a quiz. We're playing the quiz.
Yeah. Pop quiz. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't tell you ahead of time that there was going to be a test. So like choose is indexed at 0. There's other things that are indexed at 1. JSON is indexed at 0. So this is item 0 in the list. This is item 1. This is item 2. This is item 3. Fairly straightforward.
So if you say, give me object 3 from this JSON array can go and hunt that down and pull that out?
Yep.
I guess. I'm assuming, yes. Okay.
Sure. And we can do that. We can do that in my data viewer. I wish I could have like a blank data viewer for this. But the data viewer is shared across all my instances of FileMaker, unfortunately.
Oh,
So
really?
so far,
I've never used two data viewers on two different versions at the same time. When you have data viewer, it's only
it's a shared data viewer.
Really?
In terms of what's stored in there,
okay.
all of your stored things, that's shared across multiple versions.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the shared, yes.
So far, we've been using JSON set element. Okay. There's also JSON get element. Okay. I started typing this out. JSON get element. So if I'm looking at my as JSON here, and I said, that's my JSON field. If I say, get me the first name. Remember, everything is in quotes here. And if I evaluate that, it gives me back here. Pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
I think so. So
no, I agree. I'm agreeing. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's how we set it.
Away.
That's how we get it. Now, the other thing, and again, going back to why I like JSON, if I put that carriage return in there.
Oh, yes. What's it going to do? Is it going to unencode? Oh, there it goes.
It's going to unencode it.
Yeah.
So I've got the encoding and the decoding automatically. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to think about it. So you can throw whatever garbage, like you can just have the users just entering raw text. They can copy and paste a Word document in there and it will take care of it.
That's nice. Okay.
Okay. So that's JSON set element or get element, excuse me.
Yep.
When we're looking at a JSON object. Now, this JSON array that I put in here, if I wanted to do the same thing here, I want to get, I don't know, give me a number. Which one? The first one, second, third, fourth?
Third
one. So I'm going to go with my JSON array. And instead of putting a label in here, because remember, we don't have any labels, I'm going to use this bracket notation and say, give me the third one.
That's the third object in the array, correct?
That's the third one in the array. And if I click on evaluate here, it's going to give me Jamie.
Okay.
Right? Oh, wait, is that the third object or is that object 3? Remember, this is 0 indexed. So if I want the third object,
0 should have been Laura. Yeah. So
if I want the third object, I have to think about number 2.
Everyone following that? Right. So like when you're 5 years old, 1, 2, 3, yes, mommy, yes.
Yeah.
So but the problem is you're teaching your kid to start from 0. Like, watch this. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many fingers on your hand? 4.
Suddenly have 9 fingers.
You only have 9 fingers. Yeah.
9
fingers.
Yep.
Yeah, and so it's like oof. But there are 5 different numbers in that range because 0 is my professor in college used to tell me if I use 0, I would divide by 0, I'd go to hell. Literally, he said that many times. So we never were afraid to divide by 0. So yes, zeros are weird. All right, so that we had that, so we fixed that.
Okay, so I'm getting the first one here, etc. Now, what happens if you don't know how many there are in there, and you want to get the last one?
And if it was text in FileMaker, you could use a left command or a right command or a get the number of them command, something like that.
Yep. Now this is JSON. It's an array. So the question is, how do I, let's say instead of there being 4
array
things
count.
Here, this was just a huge list of them. So there's nothing in FileMaker that says, give me how many things are in this array.
Objects are an array. That's okay. Well, that's clearly oversight by Claris. Yes.
Right.
Oh, JSON
delete elements, format elements, get element type. Get element type is kind of nice because it'll tell you, is this a string? Is this a number, etc.
Okay.
What we have is JSON list keys and JSON list values. So I'm going to use one of those.
Okay.
So JSON list keys, when I've got my array here, I'm going to reference my array. Now, again, here we have key or index to path. The great thing about this is if it's blank, you're going to list all of the keys that are in your JSON. So if I were looking at as JSON up above here, and I said JSON list keys, evaluate that, It's going to tell me email, first name, last name, metadata. What about these keys here?
Well,
You told it.
yeah, keep going. I'm listening.
Yeah, so you told it to get these keys.
Uh-huh.
I could say get
The second level.
the second level. So get metadata. And actually, I started typing this period here. These two things are synonymous. Just an
Okay.
empty string or doing that, those both produce the same thing.
So when you say like path, then is this an index or is this a path? This is a
path here.
Okay. So instead of like a forward slash for a path, we're using a period for the path. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So here I'm saying get me all of the keys within the metadata object. And you can see I've got variation account, timestamp, and record ID.
Yeah, but you could have two different you could have metadata something else operating at the second level, right? Couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you put dot in there, then you'd come back with both. Right. Like say you had metadata and then dog, and then the next it would be doggy snacks dot whatever, right? It would be the
absolutely.
See what I'm saying? So yeah. Because the metadata is going to target that one specifically. Okay.
I can do that. I can go deep. I don't know if you want to go deep, but you can go deep here.
Now, well, we do have to get to the 21-24 improvements at some point. So yes.
We do.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here and I'm just learning this, and a lot of people here are enjoying this, but there's only so much corn to go around. We have to share.
So we've got as JSON array. Now, again, we can do this. JSON lists keys for an array. What do you think it'll get you?
All of it? Or
is it going to give you this?
That was my thought, was that Laura, Craig, Mary, and Jamie.
Okay. So remember here, when I said that this object, we've got a key and then we've got a value. Key, value. This array, we just have values, no keys.
Got it.
So these are values in the array. The keys are the index.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So we've got our 0, 1, 2, 3 here. Now, the whole point I said this, I said, I want to get the last one. I don't know how many are in here. Well, this is just a list. I can do value count.
Yes.
Right? I do value count on here.
And then you get 4.
And it tells me there's 4.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to get the last one. So now
I have people commenting that this is easy to follow and they're really loving this. This conversation that's kind of flowing. They're enjoying this flowing kind of conversation with a kind of conversational back and forth. And you're not trying to explode their heads with awesomeness. Just kind of keep it simple. A lot of people are enjoying this.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so again, I can throw that value count in there so I can get the last one out of my array. And when I click evaluate, what am I going to get? This is the pop quiz part of this.
3. Canberra says 3. Quick, 3. Yes, thank you. Was it 3?
3. So I'm doing JSON get element.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my JSON, and I'm getting the count of this. Remember, my count was 4. That's what's still down here. I click evaluate, and I get blank.
Canberra, you screwed me. Knock it off. That was a bad answer.
Remember,
damn it.
I'm just trying to hammer this into your heads. It's 0 base. You always have to go -1. So whenever you're thinking, I want the 4th element, no, actually I want the 3rd. If I'm saying I want the last here and it's returning 4, I need to subtract 1 from that so that I can get Craig.
Oh, okay.
But wait a minute.
It's happening. Got it.
What happened here? I don't know. Because I put -1 in there. No, you want to put that -1 right here. Right? So this is your value count. Gets you to 4, -1. And now I'm getting Jamie. That's the last one in here.
Got it. Okay, so Jason, you're asking it to get the element from the value count number that's being returned, but the value count is going to give you 4 total and not count from 0. It's going to give you nothing.
Correct.
Subtract 1.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. You've taught Rich something now.
That is a true statement.
This is how you used to have to do this until 21-24. You had to do this whole value count thing, -1, So one of the things that Claris has given us is this last element. So last, and I have over here, this is your cheat sheet over here, uses this syntax. It's got the square brace, the colon, in the closing square brace.
Okay, so no subtraction required. It's just going to give you
No
the
subtraction required.
Got it.
Isn't it so much easier?
That's much easier.
I think that's much easier. So, I mean, I'm like, this is such a like little thing, but when you see the amount of effort that it replaces by this little, small, minute improvement, it's like my calculations are so much easier to read now because that frankly wasn't easy to read. That whole value count, why am I subtracting the one, I'm listing the keys, like all of that.
Asked me the question, I was like, that's a, there's a lot of stuff in front of me. I'm having a hard time processing.
That's a lot of stuff there. So this one, getting the last, is great. As I said before, I might not just want like the first names. I want to actually have, maybe the entire record. Like I want a list of the records, not just a list of one of the fields.
Okay.
So I'm going to populate this by script. I'm going to create myself a new script. Let me close all of these. Oh, lots of scripts to close. Here we go. Get found set as array.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm going to use a loop. I like this. I'm going to go my first record, and I'm going to loop. Loop is my favorite. Everybody completely understands what these flush options are. I don't have to explain them at all. Everybody intuitively
gets good on that. We've talked about that before. Yeah, by the default, you don't have to worry. Default is the old behavior, which is fine. We don't have the extra hour here because Corny, you and I keep going on this. We'll be here, another couple hours.
Boy. So I'm going to say this is going to be my variable. It's going to be JSON array. I can't use that. It's reserved.
Oh.
That's so sad. There, I'll make it.
There we go.
There we go. So the way that this works is I'm going to be using my JSON set element here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be setting an array. So I want to use an empty array, not an empty object, empty array, which is the square braces.
Okay.
And now here's this interesting thing. We've got key or index or path. Now, this is a little bit frustrating to me, but I've made my peace with it because you have to do this sort of concatenation. When you're using index, it has to be inside of the square braces.
Okay.
And then I have to do my get record number.
Okay.
And then close my square brace. I kind of feel like, but whatever. I'm living with it. And now, instead of doing this, now I could have done this before when I was making that. Instead of typing it by hand, I'm saying this is a JSON string.
Okay.
Right? So that's my step. I'm setting this found set as array. And then I'm going to loop.
That's an object. That's an array. It's an array, but each record is, but every record's an object, right? Should be.
Well, every record would be an object. Right now, I'm just referencing a field.
One field.
One field.
Okay.
So how I have this set up here, I'm just referencing the first name field.
Okay.
And that's what I might have done if I was doing this with a script.
Okay.
I might have done this. So if I want, I can, as I said before, I can embed this as an object. Maybe, in fact, I'm going to reference, I already have that object. It's right here.
Okay.
But it's not a JSON string anymore now. This is a JSON object.
Okay.
So again, breaking this out into human readable form, I've got my empty array. I'm setting this record number here.
Okay.
I've got, this is my index. This is the value. This is the contents. And then this is what type of content that is.
Okay.
Okay.
Margaret, question?
No, I'm following. So.
Well, we'll see what comes out the other side here. What sausage comes out the other side of the factory?
What sausage comes out the other side? So I've got my loop. I'm going to set my variable. Let me just show my data viewer. Let's see what's in that variable. Wait, what is this null thing here?
That's, you didn't name the object or the array?
Let me add that to my watch. Remember, I said that when I'm formatting elements, it's going to be in here. You can see that like here, I've got all these JSON format elements. I put this over here. I'm going to edit it. I'm just going to wrap that JSON format elements, just so I can get something that's a little bit more readable.
Okay, that's a lot better.
Right. So now if I look at this, it doesn't show up there. I gotta look at it here. This is a lot more readable, but you got this null here. What the heck is that?
The first thing be empty?
Why is this one empty?
Do you is that the identifier for the object? I mean, because
No,
or is it the zero?
No.
It's one of the. Okay,
no,
we're guessing wrong. I'll shut up now.
you're guessing wrong. Remember, you're gonna keep beating this into your head.
Well, it's zero. It's that or it's a zero. It doesn't like the fact that
-1.
record number.
Record number is going to return 1 because you have the first record.
Oh, but JSON. Oh, shoot. Okay. So yeah, get record. Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Got it. Okay, I didn't even process completely that was happening, even though I just learned about it.
Let's go through here again. Now we're going to set our variable. Now let's go over to our watch and let's look at what it says. Now that null is gone. This is my whole object inside of here.
That's
So there's
one
only
object. One
That's
object.
one object.
So Margaret, if you had 10 records or 10 objects, then it would be they'd stack down below.
Mhm.
Yep. So as we go through here, wait, this script isn't done yet. So now I gotta say not
Yeah.
last, next.
I saw that. I was
Exit
like,
after last.
oh. See, sometimes
so
I
I
can't
gotta
tell
go-
if you're making a mistake or you're doing it on purpose to bait me in.
Well, I can tell you that I'm not going to tell you whether, I'm going to let you just guess.
You let me guess and flounder. Okay.
But the whole zero index thing, I am doing that on purpose just to beat it into your head. You
Proper
got to remember
arithmetic
zero
approach.
index for arrays. So now I've got this here. I'm going to go to my record next. I'm going to keep looping. I'm going to just throw that in a custom dialog. What did I call this? Found set as array. We're not going to do any canceling there. That's going to be fine. This is going to be great. We're just going to run this. It's going to all work perfectly, right? What the heck? Null, 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 null. And then my JSON, something went wrong there. Do you know what went wrong?
Well, it's from record 0, right? Or the 0 null. It's the four elements of the null.
Yeah, we got those 4 nulls, and then we got a thing here, and it's right here. When I did my JSON element, each time I'm starting over with a brand new empty array. What I want is not a brand new empty array. I want this found set as array. That's what I'm setting, not this empty array.
Yeah, you need to set it.
Now I might, because this is good practice, I like to initialize my variables just so that I'm clear on what's in there. So I'm going to set that to the empty array to start. Not here. I'm going to put that outside of my loop. So I'm going to initialize my variable here, and then I'm going to populate it. Now let's see if I run that. Oh, look. Now I've got my actual JSON.
Make that, can you pull it to the right?
As an array.
Does it make it any
What's that?
more readable? Is it more readable if you make that window wider right there? I mean,
Can I make this window wider, more readable? No, I can't make that more readable or anything like that. You know what I can do? Is I can look at my data viewer. That's down here. Oh, what is this?
What
Found set as array, syntax error. A valid JSON document must be in either an array or an object value. What's going on there?
Margaret, quick answer. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
You don't know. I don't know either. Actually, I do know. But I'm gonna pretend like I don't know.
I'm sure you know. Okay.
I'm gonna run that script again.
Let me actually see it again.
All right, and I'm gonna step through it. So we see here my found set as array. The first time I go through, it's got 1 value in here.
Okay.
Right?
So it keeps adding.
It keeps adding.
Yep. That's perfect.
Okay. Is there like a first empty value in it because the initial set variable set it as an empty value?
It should be fine.
Okay.
So the JSON set element is referencing the previous values and then adding to it. Okay.
Hmm.
I was looking for
And you can see,
A equals A plus whatever the new stuff is, but that's kind of assumed
Yep.
in the function. Okay.
Yep. So as I step through here, like I've got this here, and you can see that it actually looks pretty decent. I've got 1 record in here, 2 records, 3 records.
Mm-hmm.
Seems fine with me. And I go here, step through, records missing, whatever, that's fine.
Exit after last. Yep.
Totally looks fine. But it keeps doing this. JSON format elements found set as array. And this is actually an issue in Claris where sometimes with arrays, it gets a little bit confused about what that element looks like. And it thinks it's not actually JSON when really it is JSON. Right? This is JSON here, found set as array.
So what's
Wait.
confusing it? Exactly.
What's confusing it? It's
Yeah.
not here. My script ended.
Beverly,
That's
Oh,
what's
it's a
confusing
local
it.
variable.
It's a local variable.
Oh my God.
yeah, people
Man.
were saying that online, but I was like, okay,
Oh.
yeah.
No,
was-
okay. Well,
I don't-
you're paying more attention.
Margaret knows those. That's she definitely knows about that.
I don't have the benefit of seeing what's online, but yes, it's a local variable that went away. Whenever you are trying to JSON get or JSON, from an empty string, well, an empty string is not an object. It's not an array. An empty string is just an empty string. And so you're going to get that JSON parsing error, which, no, that's fine.
Okay.
But the point that I want to make is that it's actually a lot simpler than that now. So the second thing that Claris has done for us is instead of doing this, because again, you remember how I said, I hate this. I hate doing this bracket and get record number -1 and bracket. Well, now I have this
Bracket with a plus. Okay.
bracket with a plus. I'm gonna save my script. I'm going to debug it, walk through it. Let's see what my thing here says. Well, that seems to have worked. It's got a record in here. Seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I go through here, I keep going. It worked. Much easier syntax. So much easier. So just these 2 little things made it a lot easier to go from, that sort of kind of ugly calculation to figure out which element I'm setting, having to remember that it's 0 indexed, having to do any counting to figure out which one I'm supposed to be setting, all those nulls that show up. Now I'm just appending with that plus, and that plus gets me right to the end.
So Stu, who is has a questionable background, he's classified. We can't tell you who he is. Easy to understand, but hard to remember. Have you come up with a way to keep the plus and the colon straight in your head?
I have not. I just know. I have been punished enough doing it the other way that it's just like committed to memory. Plus means add to the end. Colon means reference to the end.
Brute force. Okay. Brute force.
Learn via pain. Understood.
Yeah, but the plus really, I think it's really about the plus. The plus is adding. I think plus, I think adding. I'm adding to the end of my array.
Yeah, and then the colon.
And then the colon is just, you just got to remember the colon.
Yeah. So is that the 2 improvements they had? Then they had the new function too, right? Create
then
array.
They have the new function JSON make array.
Make array.
Yeah, JSON make array. Now I'm going to change something here just to make the JSON make array actually work, because there's a couple of things that we can do. I can do it in the debugger here, or in the data viewer. I can just create a new thing here. Let's see, I'm going to go to my watch, because I have a script here. I'm looping across a found set of records. Like, not the best way to do things, but they have this third function that they've just improved things, which is this replaces a custom function that I had created. And I think a lot of people who work with JSON have created a custom function that's similar to this, JSON make array. So with JSONMakeArray, I can put in a list of values. Tom, I'm going to use the Pilcrow, and Harry. So a lot of people, they're going to have a list like this. It's going to be a carriage return separated list of something. And what JSONMakeArray does is it says, you can just make an array out of that now. I don't have to loop through anything. I don't have to, do any of this appending or anything like that. I've just got an array now. And if I want to pretty that up, JSON format elements.
Okay.
And I can see that this is, in fact, a proper array. Although it's kind of interesting that it doesn't break it out like it does with objects. But that's just how arrays are, because arrays are not, they're just a set of items. So the cool thing that I think about this is instead of having my script to make my AsJSON array of this, what I can do instead is I can use a summary function. I love summary functions. You like summary functions, Rich?
I like them as long as the found set's not excessively beefy, right?
Excessively beefy, yeah. So I'm going to create this summary function here, list of JSON, and I'm going to use the list of this. This is the function that I really like to use. And it can bring your database to a crawl if you do this, because you're going to be going across the found set. I've got a found set of 4. It's fine. If I had a found set of 400,000,
yeah,
I'm going to start getting angry phone calls. So I'm going to do a list of AsJSON. And now, let's see, I've got my script here. I don't need my script anymore. I've got this in my data viewer, and go back here. So instead of my JSONMakeArray with this hard-coded thing here, I'm going to use my list of JSON. Right? And most FileMaker list functions, they're going to use carriage returns as your separator. I'm going to evaluate, what the heck?
See, he says that, Margaret. I can't tell if he's gaming me or not, right? So,
well,
that looks like an encoding problem, or
that looks like an encoding problem, right?
Yeah.
You'll recall that I said I do not use JSON format elements on my JSON.
It's only for visual inspection.
Okay. It's only for visual inspection. Remember when I got that list, when I formatted it, it was actually a list. It had, open brackets. It's got everything on a separate line. It's got tabs to tab things over. That's annoying.
Okay.
That's what I was expecting.
Ah, okay.
So what's happening is because I was formatting my JSON, it's no longer valid JSON, actually. It's actually just a text string now with all those carriage returns and stuff in there. Because remember, if I have a carriage return, that should be a \R. That should not be, an actual carriage return in my JSON. So that was what was happening there. This is why I don't use format for my stored JSON, because then it makes these beautiful new functions like JSONMakeArray and just ruins it, because it generates that garbage that we saw earlier. So now this script that I have, don't have to do it. The custom function I used to use, don't need it. I've got JSONMakeArray. And if you're getting your list from elsewhere, and it's like maybe you got a comma separated list, or you've got a some other separator, they made this very, so you can specify the separator that you're using, and then tell it what kind of thing you have. Now you can see that there's some of this like \R, \R. That's because I say this is a JSON string. If I said this is actually a JSON object now, whoa, look at that.
That was what I was looking for. Okay, sorry. That's what I was expecting. Thanks for doing that at the very end.
Right?
Yeah, I was like 10 minutes ago. Right? Yeah. No, I'm like, so I don't know what he did. It should have looked like this. So
it should have looked like this, and that's the difference between string and object. So when I set it as string in JavaScript, this is called stringify, and a lot of people don't realize you can stringify a JSON object within FileMaker, and that's how you do it. You just say, you take an object and you call it a string instead, and then it will stringify it.
The best way, there's a lot of people, the people who are chatting, there's a lot of chatting going on. They're the people who fundamentally know JSON and understand JSON, or JSON as I should say. But a lot of people don't do a lot of JSON, like myself, and we're quietly sitting in the back of the class hoping all the smart people answer the questions. And so we're like, okay, so the best way to get into this, I mean, Corn, I mean, from your perspective, right? So I'm over the hill and I'm about done, but Margaret, on the other hand, is young and perky. And so the question is should we have a project? Where would she do JSON? I guess try to incorporate it into a project so you can learn it, because if you use it and start using it every day, then it becomes natural, I assume, right?
Yep.
So
yeah. And that's what I said at the beginning. We use JSON ever since FileMaker 16 as all of our script parameters and our script results. That's the very first thing that you can do. You know, if I'm creating a script, what I used to do, I'd create a script and I'd say, you know, calculate widgets. And I would have this parameter string up here. I'd say, you know, I need the widget ID. I need the widget name, just so that it looks good. And I need the quantity there. And what I would do is I would pass this over as a list, as a return separated things of values, because, you know, every script parameter is just text. Now, every script parameter that I send over, this is something where Todd and I kind of like, Todd is a little bit more or less of a hard ass than I am. Because Todd's like, you know, if you're just sending one thing over, let's say you're just sending an ID over, you know, just do that. You know,
just send
you
the
don't
one,
have to
okay.
use JSON, whatever. Just send the one thing over. He's got a valid point. I think that's totally perfectly fine. I like to get people into the habit of using JSON so that you're not lazy and you know, because the next thing you know, like as soon as you say, oh, that script, I said it was one parameter, but actually I needed two. Well, now you have to change that.
That happens about 90% of the time. So,
right?
And Margaret's laughing because she's seen it happen to her, right? Oh, we only need one parameter. And then a week later, it's 12 parameters, right? So
exactly. And so if it was JSON from the start, you don't really have to change anything. You just have to parse out those extra parameters. If it wasn't JSON from the start, well, now you've got a problem. So that's where I use my JSON the most in FileMaker, is whenever I'm moving data back and forth between scripts, I'm going to use JSON. I'm going to use it as my script parameter and also as my script result. And that's how I get into the habit of knowing how to use JSON and getting really comfortable with all of these functions. And I can tell you that even though these improvements, like on the surface, are very minor, they've just made coding like so much quicker for me. Like that whole thing where I'm like trying to append to a list or trying to get to the last one. Like I do that every day, multiple times a day. And this is just so much easier now.
Well, people were, I can always tell the people who are good at this and the people who are not great at it, like myself and others who are either their microphone broke or their keyboard broke, but they're very silently sitting in the back of the classroom hoping no one calls out their name. Excellent training from Corn, says Beverly. Yeah, I totally agree. Good job, Corn. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely done. And like I said, we'll have you around more often than once every decade, which would be great. Yeah, we want to have Corn back as often as possible. We've actually had a really group of people, the Vince and his crew there at Beeswax, and also Wim DeCortis Lion. Just a really great group of people. The FileMaker community is really giving, really wonderful group of people, and that's why it's so nice to meet these people. That's why you like to go to DEF CON and meet them at DEF CON. Corn, thank you. Great job.
Quite welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
You are awesome. Thank you, sir. All right, Margaret, that's it. Everyone, we'll see you Monday.
Yeah, you'll have a good one, everybody.
know.